You ever get that feeling? That gnawing tug in your gut that tells you something's not right? Even when everything on the surface looks picture perfect? That was me. Jake used to be this open book, you know? Quick to text back, always smiling when I walked into the room. But lately, the pages started closing. Messages sat unread. His phone was always face down, and the warmth in his eyes? Gone. I told myself it was work stress, maybe just a bad week, but deep down, I knew better. It started small, a shift in his cologne, a sudden obsession with the gym, calls he'd have to take outside. And one night, when I leaned in to kiss him goodnight, he flinched, not like he was surprised, like he'd been caught. That's when the doubt stopped whispering and started screaming. Still, I didn't confront him. I'm not one to scream or throw things. I'm the type that observes and remembers. So when he left his laptop open, careless, really, I didn't even hesitate. My hands shook a little, sure, but I kept clicking. I found a folder, hidden, password protected. He used our anniversary. Inside were photos, screenshots, messages, all of them with a woman named Tessa, his mistress. And just like that, the tears dried. Because while he was busy crafting lies, I started planning something a little sweeter. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was heartbroken. That part came earlier, quietly, over weeks of being ignored. No, I was wide awake because for the first time in a long while, I felt clear, focused. I kept picturing his birthday dinner that was coming up, the one he always made such a big deal about, his special night. And it hit me. What better place to unwrap the truth than at his own party? The next morning, I got up early, brewed my coffee, and sat at the kitchen table with a notebook. No crying, no pacing, just planning. I started jotting down names of people he'd probably invite, the restaurant he'd love, and one particular detail I couldn't get out of my head: the cake. Jake was obsessed with chocolate hazelnut cake, had been since our second date. That's when the real idea clicked, almost too perfectly. I imagined the room, friends, family, Jake beaming like the perfect boyfriend. And then, the cake. The centerpiece of the evening. But not just any cake. No. This one would speak. This one would tell on him, in pink and gold, sweet and sharp. I didn't know exactly what it would say yet, but I knew this much. It wasn't going to wish him a happy birthday. It was going to reveal exactly who he really was. It's funny how betrayal sharpens your senses. That week, I noticed everything. The way Jake smiled at his phone when he thought I wasn't looking, the fake yawns when I asked if he wanted to spend time together. And all I did was nod, smile, and keep the act going. Because now, I had a secret too. I wasn't just his girlfriend anymore. I was the woman about to flip the script. I started gathering details like ingredients, his favorite colors, the bakery he raved about, the exact shade of pink Tessa wore in those saved photos. I even saved the messages he sent her, the ones where he called her my piece and the one I should have met first. Yeah, I printed those, not because I needed more proof, but because one day he was going to see them again, right before the candles were lit. And the best part? He had no clue, not the faintest idea. He still kissed me goodbye like everything was fine, still planned his birthday like we were the picture of love. I played along, sweeter than ever, but inside I was already baking something far richer than cake, something layered, unexpected, and just bitter enough to leave a lasting taste. The morning I called the bakery, I was calm. Too calm, probably. The woman on the other end was cheerful, asked what kind of celebration it was. I smiled and said, "It's for my boyfriend's birthday." She chuckled and said, "Lucky guy." I almost laughed. If only she knew. I told her I wanted a chocolate hazelnut cake, layered thick, just like he likes it. But then I added the twist, pink and gold decorations, and a name written across the top, Tessa. There was a pause. I could almost hear her blinking through the phone. "Are you sure that's what you wanted to say?" she asked, careful, like she thought I might have misspoken. "Yes," I said. "I'm sure." The words tasted bold coming out of my mouth, like power, like clarity. This wasn't just a cake anymore. It was a message, a statement. And it was going to sit there in buttercream and gold flakes for everyone to see. I gave her the message for the icing. You deserve every piece. Simple, honest, elegant even. It wasn't petty or loud, it was poetic. Because he did deserve every piece, every bite of betrayal he'd fed me, now served right back to him. And the best part? It would look beautiful. Instagrammable even. A picture-perfect lie, hiding the sweetest truth I'd ever get to tell. After placing the order, I sat back and stared at my phone for a while. My heart wasn't racing. There was no guilt, no second-guessing. Just a quiet kind of satisfaction. The kind you feel when the pieces start falling into place, not by luck, but by choice. I wasn't being cruel. I was being precise. Jake handed me the truth in digital form, and I was simply returning it in edible art. Over the next few days, I kept smiling, laughing at his jokes, kissing him like nothing was wrong. That was the trick, really, keeping everything just as he expected, because if I acted differently, he might have sensed it, and I wanted him completely off guard. I wanted that moment of confusion before the crash. That 1 second where he'd wonder if maybe, just maybe, the frosting was for someone else. I even rehearsed what I'd say to the guests, just in case they asked about the design. "Oh, it's a surprise," I'd smile. "He'll get it when he sees it." And he would, because I wasn't just icing a cake. I was icing over the months he made me feel invisible. I was turning every ignored message, every lie, every whispered name into something people could see, taste, and remember. The day before the dinner, I went to pick up the cake myself. The box was heavier than I expected, or maybe it just felt that way, knowing what was inside. The baker handed it over with this curious look, like she wanted to ask what the story was but didn't dare. I thanked her, smiled, and said, "It turned out exactly how I pictured it." And it had. The pink lettering, the soft gold trim, the name Tessa sitting right on top like a crown of betrayal. Driving home, I kept glancing at it in the rearview mirror. It looked innocent, beautiful even. But I knew what it carried. It was a symbol, a countdown, and it was wrapped in satin ribbon like a gift. Not for Jake, not really, but for me. My closure, my message, my proof that I wasn't the fool he thought I was. I'd played the part perfectly. Now it was almost time for the curtain to rise. When I got home, I tucked the cake safely in the fridge and poured myself a glass of wine. I raised it quietly to no one in particular and whispered, "Two endings and delicious beginnings." Because tomorrow wasn't about revenge in the ugly sense. It was about revelation. And the stage was already set. The restaurant was already buzzing when we walked in. Candles flickered, soft jazz played in the background. It was Jake's favorite place. Upscale but cozy, the kind where everyone claps when dessert comes out. He was glowing, shaking hands, hugging old friends, soaking in every compliment like it was champagne. And me? I was on his arm, smiling, laughing, telling everyone how proud I was of him. Picture perfect. But behind my smile, my mind was counting down. I could feel the chill of the cake box they'd brought in through the back. I'd asked the staff to store it until the end, to make it a big moment. They were more than happy to help. After all, who doesn't love a surprise at a birthday dinner? Jake didn't suspect a thing. Not when I raised a toast. Not when I kissed his cheek. He thought this night was about him, and in a way, it still was. Throughout dinner, I played the doting partner, making sure his wine glass stayed full, nudging his arm when someone gave a toast, laughing at stories I'd heard a dozen times. It felt almost theatrical, like I was watching myself play the role of loving girlfriend from somewhere outside my own body. But there was a strange power in that performance, because I knew exactly how this act would end. Dessert time. The lights dimmed just a little, just enough to make it feel special. The manager gave me a wink as he wheeled the cake out, box still closed, and placed it right in front of Jake. People leaned in, ready for the usual candles and cheer. Jake clapped his hands together, completely in his element. "You didn't have to go all out," he said, grinning like a man who thought he had it all. "Go ahead," I told him gently. "Open it." The box lid came up slowly. I watched his eyes land on the pink cursive. He blinked once, then again. The room went still. Conversations cut off mid-sentence. A single fork clinked against a plate. No one moved. His brow furrowed as he leaned in to read again, like maybe he'd misread it. Tessa. The name hit him like a slap dressed in sugar. Silence stretched over the table like a tablecloth no one dared to wrinkle. His mouth opened, then closed. Everyone was staring. Friends, co-workers, his cousin, who'd flown in just for this. Some looked confused. Others looked like they were trying not to look at all. I stayed perfectly still, hands folded neatly in my lap. Let him sit in it. Let him taste the confusion before the first bite even touched his lips. I could feel the pulse in my ears, but my face stayed calm, the kind of calm that comes after weeks of quiet unraveling. Jake looked up at me, his voice barely a whisper. What is this?" I tilted my head slightly, gave him a soft smile. "It's your cake." Around us, the air was thick with tension, like the whole room was holding its breath. Some people looked at me, waiting to see if this was a joke. It wasn't. And then they read the rest, the icing message just below her name. "You deserve every piece." That was when it clicked. The whispering started. A few people gasped. One of his friends leaned back in his chair like he didn't want to be caught in the blast. Jake's face went pale, and he started stammering something about a misunderstanding, a joke, anything to grab at. But the truth was already out, and there was no stuffing it back under the lid. I didn't raise my voice, didn't make a scene. I just sat there and watched as the realization settled across his face like the slow drip of frosting down the side of the cake. This wasn't just a party anymore. It was a reckoning, and I hadn't even stood up yet. I stood up slowly, no rush, no drama, just calm, deliberate motion, the kind that makes people lean in without realizing it. My glass was already in hand. I tapped it gently with my ring and let the sound cut through the whispers like a clean blade. "I'd like to make a toast," I said, loud enough for the entire table. Jake looked at me with wide eyes, maybe still hoping I'd turn this into a joke. He didn't know me at all. "To Jake," I began, locking eyes with him, "who's been giving so much of himself to someone else lately. Tessa, if you're watching this online later, this cake's for you too." The gasp wasn't theatrical. It was real. One of his aunts dropped her fork. Someone at the next table muttered, "Oh my God." Jake's mouth opened again, but he still had no words. I didn't give him time to find any. I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone, already cued to the voice message. Hit play. His voice, soft and low, filled the space between the silverware and champagne. "I miss you so much, baby. Being with her is like acting in a play. You're the only one who feels real." His own voice. That was the knife. I didn't flinch. I watched him with the same calm I'd built this whole performance on. He had asked for this, with every lie, every kiss meant for someone else. Jake's face crumbled, not with regret, with panic. The kind of panic you see in someone who's just realized they've lost control, and worse, that everyone's watching. He reached across the table, whispering, "Natalie, please." I leaned back slightly, like his hands were smoke I didn't want to breathe in. "Please what?" I asked, my voice steady. "Please stop telling the truth?" His lips moved, but nothing came out that could save him. I walked over to the cake, the one with her name, the one with his choices. I picked up the knife, the serving knife, not sharp, but decisive, and sliced clean through the name he tried to protect. One smooth cut. The room watched in stunned silence. I lifted the first piece, placed it gently onto a plate, and set it in front of him. "For you," I said, "since you've been craving something sweet behind my back." He didn't touch it, just stared, hands in his lap, face flushed with shame. The weight of judgment wasn't just mine anymore. It was in every look cast from across the table. People were pulling their phones closer, whispering to each other. I didn't care. Let it spread. I wasn't hiding anymore. And I wasn't just exposing him. I was reclaiming my voice, one syllable at a time. I looked around the table, taking in the stunned faces, some shocked, some strangely impressed. It was quiet now. No one dared to move their forks. "Don't worry," I said, my voice light. "There's plenty of betrayal to go around. Everyone can have a slice." A few people glanced at each other, unsure whether to laugh or look away. Jake's sister put her hand to her mouth. His best friend just lowered his head. Jake still hadn't spoken. He just sat there, small in his chair, like the air had been sucked out of him. He looked at the cake, then at me, like he was trying to find the person he thought I was. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I had grieved her already. What stood there now was someone who had stopped asking for honesty and started demanding it. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't need to. The message had already been delivered, in frosting, in flavor, in full view of the people who once believed he was worth celebrating. And the best part? I hadn't raised a hand, just a knife, and the truth. I didn't storm out. That would have given him too much power. Instead, I stood tall, brushed invisible crumbs from my dress, and walked out of that restaurant like it was a runway built just for me. Heads turned. Some people followed. Others stayed, frozen in the awkward mess he was left to clean up. I didn't look back. Not once. That chapter was closed, and for the first time in months, I felt free. Outside, the night air felt sharp and honest. No more pretending. No more playing the role he'd cast me in. I took a deep breath and felt my chest rise without the weight of his lies pressing down on it. A few of our mutual friends texted me that night. Some apologized, some just sent clapping emojis. I didn't reply. Not yet. That part could wait. Tonight was mine. When I got home, I kicked off my heels and poured another glass of wine. I curled up on the couch, cake-free, drama-free, and filled with a strange peace. That photo of the cake, I'd taken it earlier, before the dinner. I looked at it one more time and hit post. Caption: "Happy birthday, Jake. Hope it's everything you deserved." I turned off my phone, took a sip, and smiled. By morning, my post had taken on a life of its own. Thousands of likes, shares. Comments from women I'd never met, some cheering me on, others sharing their own stories, their own slices of truth. One woman wrote, "You didn't just serve cake, you served justice." I laughed out loud at that one. It felt good to be understood, to have strangers echo back the strength I had to claw my way into. Then came the real twist. The bakery reposted it. The same shop where I'd ordered the cake. They posted a photo of it with the caption, "Custom messages are always honored, and sometimes unforgettable." That's when it went viral. News sites started reaching out. Podcasts wanted interviews. Apparently, revenge served sweet had a flavor people couldn't resist. And Jake? He stayed quiet, which was wise, really. I didn't do it for fame. I didn't do it to humiliate him even. I did it because I refused to disappear quietly. I gave so much of myself to someone who gave me nothing but shadows. And in return, I gave him a spotlight he never wanted. It wasn't about getting even. It was about being done, loudly, clearly, and unapologetically. In the weeks that followed, something shifted in me. I didn't feel bitter. I didn't feel broken. I felt rebuilt. Like every piece of me he tried to wear down had fused back together, but stronger. I started doing things just for me again, signing up for a pottery class, taking long walks without checking my phone, rediscovering the silence I used to be afraid of. And it didn't echo with loneliness anymore. It echoed with peace. People kept asking me if I ever heard from Jake after that night. Truth is, I did. A few messages, apologies, excuses, even a voice note or two, the kind filled with half-hearted regret and rewritten history. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. He had my final answer served to him between gold lettering and crushed hazelnuts. Nothing I could say now would be more honest than what I'd already done. So no, he didn't get closure, but I did. Because while he lied with words, I answered with frosting. And the best part? I didn't just get revenge. I got clarity. I got myself back. And every time someone shares that cake photo, I smile. Not because of what he lost, but because of what I finally found.